Welcome back to Sparkle on Substack, everyone. I am recording in my utility room today. My husband and I share the studio. He is a personal trainer and coach, and he's got clients back to back today. But I really wanted to seize the opportunity to speak with Tanya. So we are doing that, and hopefully the sound quality is okay for you all. I've closed the door and muffled the window, and I think we're all going to be good. There might also be some sound on Tanya's end as well, because she's got beautiful dogs that she's going to tell us more about. But welcome, Tanya. Welcome to Sparkle on Substack. It's so lovely to have you here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I've been following your journey for now years, and it's just lovely to be connected like this through the power of Substack.
It's amazing, isn't it, to say years? But it is, it's going to be 2 years since I joined Substack in April. And I think we connected in the early days. We were just talking about this. You had a beautiful publication. And quite a niche publication. It'd be great to get into some of that, but we'll start with introductions. Do you want to tell everybody who you are in the world? Some people might have heard of you on the Substack party on Notes, and they might have seen your name. Can you tell us a bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. Well, it was from the pandemic that this whole interest in the literary world started. I'd had Ease Retreats, which is a retreats business I started back in 2017 on the back of a divorce, actually. I was looking for a retreat myself, couldn't find anything that was based in Wales by the coast. I'm Welsh through and through, and I think it's one of the most beautiful countries. So I launched something for me and my friends, mainly women midlife who are a bit on the edge of burnout way back. And we just got together to stay in a beach house, and I was host with the most. And I made sure that everyone went back to bed. It was a back to bed policy. They'd come and enjoy brunch. We'd go for some beach walks and feast and talk, and really highlighted what the importance of sisterhood was. And from then, it just matured. I did more and more of them. The pandemic hit, and then it all came crashing down. I used to run a media agency alongside a lifestyle magazine. That all came to a halt, and so did the retreats, because we couldn't meet in person. And it was on the back of me doing a writing course, and I found that I was following more writers on Instagram, and I just thought, you know what? I didn't even do any research. I didn't even know if there was writing retreats like Arvon and Curtis Brown. I just went, I would love to share a weekend in a beach house with a writer. So I started just plugging away, sending DMs to authors, and within 2 or 3 months, I was getting replies, and the plans were coming into place. So now I host day and weekend retreats, normally with best-selling authors, the likes of Kathy Rentzenbrink, Clover Stroud, Emma Gannon. Stacey Heel is going to be a new up-and-coming writer that's coming on board in June. And on the other side of the business, I'm a therapeutic journaling coach. So I host online workshops and programs. And one of my most popular program is called Rage on a Page, where I help women channel their emotions into something far more positive and creative. And the transformations some of these women are having are simply magical. So I absolutely love what I do. I'm on a mission to get more women journaling. It's a passion of mine. And I hope I am still journeying into my 80s and maybe substacking as well.
Yeah, isn't that such an interesting concept to think about? Like with my members in January, we did a 5-year goal setting task. We really lent into what could this be for us? What could this Substack space be for us? Obviously, there are lots that we don't know, but some things that we did lean into around what we wanted, because it feels like and has felt like that we've got this beautiful opportunity through Substack to feel more connected, to get to know writers in more depth, to practice our own writing, to practice different types of writing. And I'd really love to know more around your style of writing and that medicine that it's become for you. So the Rage on the Page, I'm presuming it kind of came from something that you felt called and compelled to do, and then you wanted to teach it to other people. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, I've had so many interesting challenges and struggles in my life, and I wasn't one that was very good at sitting with my anger. I was always taught to show up happy, bubbly, and it's within my personality. But as I was getting more into my midlife perimenopause, there was this bubbling heat of, I don't know what it was, but it was just so frustrating for me. And the more women I spoke to, it was like, do you know that this is happening worldwide and we've just been silenced for so long. So it was just because of my creative background. I've worked in the media, in radio, newspapers, and magazines. One of my favorite things to do is to brainstorm an idea. So Rage on a Page was born, and I haven't looked back because I know that it's something that a lot of women can relate to. The stories that come out of it, women are resonating with. And I suppose it's got quite a tongue-in-cheek connotation to it, because wouldn't we all love to be able to just go get a pen and just bold colors and really go to town on this is how I'm feeling, rather than it be, launched at a family member.
That's a really good point. And actually, I'm really curious. So I've not done it. I'll be really honest. I've not done it. The closest I've come is I've voice noted with a friend who has done it, and she called it that. So I think she must have found it through you at some point. And I didn't put the two things together. This was a while ago. And she said that her and a friend would just really safely send each other really ragey voice notes on WhatsApp. And then that came from this kind of Rage on a Page idea, this concept of just making space for the things that we feel angry about. And there's somewhere between my curiosity and what I feel is allowed, I think, that I've still got to like break through. So I'm really curious about coming. I've been through a lot myself. My daughter is now very settled in school, very happy to go. She's just 3. So it feels like for the first time in a long time, well, since the pandemic, I've got some time for myself that doesn't have to be focused on the house and the business. So I can like make some time for this. And so this curiosity, this niggle is like, I want to do that, but I'm still frightened of it, I think.
Well, I mean, it is a title, but it doesn't mean that every week we're going to be raging like, crazy cats. There is a really defined framework to the whole online program, and it is an 8-week online program. So it's a real deep dive into what therapeutic journaling is all about. And I've followed a lot of the experts and gurus from the journaling background. You'll know of some like Julia Cameron, Natalie Goldberg, and there are scientists like Dr. James Pennybaker. And now more we're hearing on podcasts by Dr. Andrew Huberman and Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. He's got his own journal out. So we really go through what I call a journal ladder, and there's 14 rungs on this ladder. So those that are substacking will really appreciate this, because what it does is you can go up this ladder as far up as you want to go, because I'm conscious that a lot of women are on the fence sometimes going, oh, I'm not a writer. Oh, I'm not good at journaling. Oh, I'm not creative. And it's like, the biggest thing that I do is I'm like a stabilizer. I give women permission to go, even if it's just a word, 1 word a day for 30 days in the month. It doesn't have to be long form writing at the beginning. And we do things like micro movements, where we think of 3 words, don't overthink them, and choose a word. And then what I ask everyone to do is like, for the next 2.5 minutes, I want you to think about the word. Where does it show up in your life? Is it manifested anywhere? Why did you choose that word? And it just gets them flexing their journaling muscle, and it gets them into a state of flow. Now, that's the most simplest form of journaling at the beginning. And then at the very top of this ladder, it's expressive, creative writing. So some students are coming on my program with the objective to maybe write their memoir, to maybe start a Substack. It's just building confidence, because the women that are coming to me, some have just been diagnosed with cancer. Some are halfway through their treatment, some are in remission. And when they're in remission, they're usually at this crossroads where I have been in this secure, safe environment with the NHS or with a forum of women that have got the same cancer as me. And then all of a sudden they ring that bell and they are effectively free to get back on with their life. But it feels really unsafe, and they're vulnerable, and they're never clear of cancer. It'll always be part of them. It's just, how do they live with that? So with Rage on a Page, they come with a lot of emotions. They're really frustrated, anxious. A lot of them are scared. And we thrash this out on our weekly sessions, and they're a group and one-to-one sessions. There's a really engaged WhatsApp group where we share, a lot of aha moments, a lot of, frustrations. It's like, I just can't get into flow today, and it's okay, and we laugh about it, and because we're only human. We have guest speakers from the well-being industry that will talk to us about emotional intelligence. Money mindset is another one, and we do things like body scans, because what's so interesting is that what we may have been taught as youngsters, to zip it, don't show, don't cry, don't thrash out. We've all got children and they're having a moment in the supermarket. It's so easy to go, can you not? Just, I'm not, stand by the trolley, behave. So as children, we've not really got to grips with like, this is a certain emotion and we're feeling it for a particular reason. And with our body scan, we sometimes look at what lots of people would describe as rage and anger is actually the emotion of fear. But because we haven't been taught how to lean into our emotions, how to react, and then you've got all of youngsters having to conform in school, sit still, children should be seen and not heard. It's all this psychology going on. So it's almost giving women from the age of mid-30s to mid-70s, just lean into it. How are you feeling? It's giving women not only permission to come face to face with their emotions, but also permission to write gobbledygook. And we do a lot of work actually with the non-dominant hand, because we talk about things of how do we manage the inner critic? And a good way of doing that is by using your non-dominant hand. And there's also a lot of child play that goes on, the smiles on these women's faces, the giggles, it's there's so much warmth within the group. And I think we forget we're in this really fast-paced environment now where we're multitasking times 100. When I look back to what my mom and my grandmother had on their shoulders, and I look at the role that we have today, and I think it's because we know no different. We've got like these go faster stripes on our heads going more input from the moment we wake up to the moment we're going to bed. It's like, oh, I need to talk to Claire. I need to remind her about this and this Substack that. And I just worry about the state of our mental health moving forward, and I think, I know I'm talking around in circles about the initial question you gave me about Rachel.
No, it's great, Tanya. Yeah.
Substack has been such an amazing community, not only for myself, but for those that I've met from all walks of life, all age groups. And I think what it's doing is it's giving women confidence.
Yeah, there is that space, isn't there, where there's something where we're curious, and when we lean into that curiosity and maybe we go through the portal of creativity, there's a confidence that comes, and there's something around seeing other women model a way to show up within a publication framework, because that's what it is. It started as a newsletter platform and now it's definitely a publication framework, and we're bringing that energy to it and going, what could this publication framework be for me, for self-expression, memoir writing, community? There are so many different strands with that. And it's that deeper side of our work and our connection that we've been really missing online on other platforms. So there was a space and time where people were talking about kind of finding your tribe online, and I literally had no clue. Like I just seemed to be in my own little vortex. I had my work that I love to do, my project work, and I had an Instagram account that I would share bits and bobs, on there, but it was really just kind of friends and colleagues. And then so where is this tribe? I'm just going, well, where is the tribe, my tribe? And in the pandemic, I took a class with Amelia Hall, who's a novelist. She's an incredible writer and space holder, and she has this course called Mothership Writers. And Mothership Writers, I think it was about 8 sessions, and it was weekly, and we had like a little break for half term. And she would draw on different examples of how women and mothers had been written about in history and in poetry and in fiction, and give us exercises to do. And it was completely life-changing. So we're coming as mothers, not as writers. There was a curiosity around self-expression and capturing the moment. Like, that's why I lent into it. And I've got an arts background, so it was an instant fit. But really, yeah, we were coming to it kind of going, there's something around self-expression that we don't know where to say it, how to say it, if it even needs to be said. And within those sessions, there would be some bits and bobs of journaling and writing, and then there would be some shares. And all of the women have sort of evaporated into the ether. And then last night I did a little note because I was thinking about it. I was thinking about that space and then how far my writing's come since then. And I think I will hype myself on that because I am incredibly proud of some things that I've written recently. And one of the writers popped up and said, oh, you know, I used to be in mothership as well. It's so lovely to connect. And that just felt like such a beautiful thing, because even though I don't think she was in my cohort, like, we both know what that was like and how special it was to be held in that container. So Amelia offers it, or did offer it, to women who had children 0 to 2 years old. Lots of us had, we were just like, you know, holding the baby and writing with a notebook, and we had like the Zoom on the laptop. So it was incredibly special. And I think allowing that framework within a specific set of invitations can be really, really powerful. And I just, as you were talking about your whole approach and the essence of Rage on a Page and that therapeutic journey, and I was like, this is a really, really special thing. So for anybody listening, I really want you to go and check out what this is if you felt connected to how Tanya's described it, because it sounds incredible. For you personally, Tanya, you do some writing on Substack. So we met on Substack, and you had a Substack that was about your world in Wales and your world with the dogs. I'd love you to talk us through the pivot that you took with that. So you were writing in one space, and then now you've kind of made a different Substack home, if you like.
Yeah, it's really interesting times for me because I it's like anything I do. I almost will take the risk and do, and then think about the consequences afterwards. So I always look at what I'm really passionate about, what really gets me going in the morning. And I think through the pandemic, I made the decision to have two Ridgebacks. So if anybody that don't know much about the Ridgebacks, they're quite big dogs. They were bred in South Africa to ward off lions. They wouldn't ward off a caterpillar, the ones that are brought and bred in Britain, because they're pretty much like Scooby-Doo dogs. They look similar to a Great Dane, and they can walk for hours or they can sleep for hours. And that suited me because I love being at the coast. So I took on these two Ridgebacks, but there was such a massive curveball that happened very early on with my first, which was a male Ridgeback, and he came with a bag of issues. He was allergic to everything, so that meant he was itching, he was irritable. The food that we were buying for him was escalating in price, which also meant massive vet bills. And he was quite they call them Velcro dogs, so he was very needy. And so I think I wrote a Substack article on, oh, well, there's three of us in this relationship, and my children are grown up, and I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. So hello, my partner and my puppy. So yeah, gone are the rendezvous in our household. But as time went on, there were things happening that I was like, oh my goodness, this is just crazy. Why didn't someone tell me about this? And it's almost what happens, that you write about the things that you can't find any advice on. So I was like, I could see there were textbooks about this breed, but there was nothing going, I want the good, the bad, and the downright ugly, because I am having ugly thrown at me every day. I was talking to you before about the fact that he had an ear infection, so they've got ears like elephants, and they're veiny, and when they shake their heads so fast and constant, it pierces almost the ends of their ears, so their blood vessels go right to the tip. And so you can imagine when they're shaking their hair, you've seen a slow motion when a dog shakes their water off their back. It's ferocious. So imagine there's blood coming out of these ears when they're shaking. I've got white walls everywhere, and Obi was just yeah, I just think I'm going to paint your wall with red dots today. And this carried on, and I was beside myself because I'm proud of, what the house looks like. It's only little, but I just, when I wake up in the morning, I want to fluff up my cushions, my throws, my bookshelves are looking neat. And then I was like, and it wasn't just blood. He was a boy that hadn't been neutered, so he had green goo being splattered everywhere. His drool would go because he was just so frothing in the mouth. So, and that's just one instance. So I was like, I have to talk about this because it's my outlet. I was probably raging then. But it was comical because I could see as I was putting stories on Instagram, I could see the reaction of people going, oh my God, what's your life like? And I thought, I'm going to write a memoir about this year of my life. And so we took on another Ridgeback to give him company, and it's worked out really well. But she came with her own issues, and I've got 100,000 tales to tell. And it's a beautiful thing to talk about. I think those that love dogs and what companionship you get from a dog. And I would be interacting with people who'd lost relatives and kept the dog, or found that they'd moved to a different region and they were lonely, but they got a dog. And when they were walking in the park, they met other dog walkers, and beautiful stories would come of it. So I think when I started really getting busier with the writing retreats and everything, and because I've got a marketing background and I've worked in the media, I was like, this the way that Substack was fast tracking and the amount of people that were, connecting and being interested, I was like, where is my space here? What am I trying to achieve? Because a company of one, how it is, trying to promote yourself and get the PR and the voice out there. I was like, well, maybe Substack would be a great vehicle for my business. And so that's when I had this sort of do I, don't I? And it was interesting because a few of my followers were saying, oh no, you got to keep the dog thing. And I was like, well, I'm going to drop the Ridgeback's diaries, and I'm going to lead with the terminology with ease. And even that has changed over time because it was only on my birthday last August, I turned 49, and I was like getting a bit frustrated with, oh, what are you going to do for your 50th? Where are you going to go for your 50th? And I was like, when you're just getting through Christmas and they're already putting the Easter eggs in the supermarket, I was feeling that sort of panic, that, palpitation of, I don't want to rush through being 49. I want to live being 49, and I'll get to 50 when I'm 50. But I was like, I just need to document it, because I think what's going to happen, I'm just going to be like, oh, I did this on my 50th and this happened, and I, maybe do 50 things in my, and I thought, no, something about being a 49er. And I wanted to talk about it. So I just promised myself a ridiculous challenge. I would write every day on Substack with the theme with ease about being 49 and anything that goes into it. So it's kind of mumbo jumbo. I have days where I'm really set on what I'm trying to achieve and I've got my audience in mind. And then other days I'm just sat there talking to myself. And it's really interesting because the ones where you think, oh, what do I write? Oh, and I'm like, I just put my blinkers on. And those are the ones that get interaction. So, there's horses for courses, because you think, I've got my plan. I know where this is going. But yeah, so I'm just, I suppose I'm quite radical with my Substack. I know who likes it. I know it's growing. I know it's going in the right department. But the best thing is, do you know what? I enjoy it.
That is the best thing, isn't it? And I love that you can just shift and change and go, I'm gonna set myself a challenge and I'm gonna write daily, and I'm not, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter where that lands, or if somebody reads them all or just two or three of them like it was for you. And that's really beautiful to be able to do that and to carry on some momentum around that, and to kind of, yeah, put down the societal notion of you have to do a big thing for X. Like we've got Mother's Day coming up, and it's always like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, nothing. I don't, honestly,
Yeah.
I will look at my beautiful children and feel so grateful for them. And you know, I don't know, nothing. I don't know. Like I just feel happy with the way life is. Like yeah, I think sometimes the pressure of having to do something and celebrate something feels hard. And I've had that on Substack with very supportive colleagues. When I hit Substack bestseller, everyone would say, "What are you going to do to celebrate?" And I was like, what should I do? Like, what is the thing? Like, I don't feel any different. Like, it was great. I was working towards it. Like, I felt like it was going to happen. It happened quicker than I thought, but I didn't feel this big push to celebrate anything really. I was just like happy and glad that everything was working. So I don't know whether that's something that just comes in your 40s, and like you're further in than I am. So I'm 42, but there's definitely something where like I'm not striving here. So it's not then a big celebration when I get there. Like I'm just really enjoying my work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a level of contentment. I think
Mm,
we're not really setting out to prove anything. We're setting ourselves some really, achievable goals because I think we need to, otherwise we get lost in the whole humdrum of life and easily become quite the people pleaser for our family, friends, work, you name it.
for sure.
So I really can resonate with that because when I've done retreats as well, it's almost like an anticlimax. You put so much into something, whether that's of a day or a whole year to plan an event or like you to reach bestseller, that the energy is like, come on, keep on, keep on, keep on. And then when it arrives, it's almost like you don't know what to do with yourself. And I think it takes quite a sense of skill to be able to manage your emotions on it and be prepared that you might have a dip dive. You may feel a bit like an anticlimax. I'm quite emotional coming off some of these retreats, and especially at the end of a Rage on a Page series, because you've got this whole movement happening. There's so much warmth and love and support going around this one thing that you're striving for. I suppose it's the same as people that set out to run a marathon or climb Everest. That you're just forward thinking, aren't you? And then when something comes to an end, it's like, okay, what next? Well, you just keep going. And I just think it's so nice to be at peace with that feeling if you do get a bit like numb, little tears, just sit with it, just because it's your body telling you you just need to take some pause in this. I found something that I was talking about with when my students that had cancer would come to me, and we were looking at the word ease and what it meant, and then we were talking about the word disease, and I just had an epiphany and I went, oh my goodness, when you're dis of ease, you're not doing anything that's nourishing your body. You're not fueling it with the right nutrition. You're not looking after yourself, this amazing vessel, a body in this one whole beautiful life. It's almost like we're disrespecting ourselves. So when you're at dis-ease, what happens? You get poorly, you get disease. And I was like, oh my goodness. And that's exactly what I'm all about. I'm like, I want everybody that walks into my space to go away learning something, taking a top tip, a different technique that will help them try and live their life in a moment, in a day with ease.
I absolutely love that. It's so perfect. There's been something in the fabric of being in one place for me for the last 8 years it'll be now. And there are certain characters that are part of the fabric of our lives here. There are people that I see from the kitchen window. Our little back lane is the route to the bus stop. So there are certain characters that will trundle past every single day. That's their routine. And in the spring and summer, we might be out in the allotment garden and we might stop and chat to them. And over the years, obviously, this has become a hugely normal part of being at ease, being at home, being here. It's been really, really interesting to know that these are like, like a handful of people. It's not a busy place at all. It's a small village. But that feels so reassuring if you then go and do, the big events or go to the city or go and do other things, to be able to come back and be like, this is what feels easeful. Routine. I never was one for routine. Honestly, I was a million miles an hour. I didn't believe in any sort of routine. I really struggled with my first child with that whole bit of the picture. even though people said how important it was, like it was just a massive and very steep learning curve. And I think part of that was just being able to be slow, be mindful, make space for myself, make space for all those feelings like you're talking about. And I definitely relate with the ups and downs of events and festivals and retreats. I've kind of given a lot of my life to those sorts of events and consciously stepped back, but tentatively now I'm leaning in again, and I'm leaning in to sort of ask myself what's possible, as in, would I like to step into that space and co-host? Would I like to attend? What does that all mean now that I've learned so much more about who I am as a person? You know, and part of that is breaking out of societal expectations, you know, going slower, taking more time, taking care of yourself, and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm super, super interested in your work. Those retreat environments, Tanya, tell me a bit about them. So you've told us that we've got some best-selling authors, you're there, the venue's beautiful, people come, book tickets, they sell out. I've seen, you know, your notices on that, and I've noticed that they sell out and stuff. So how many people come, and what's the atmosphere like? Is it quite full? Do you have time for walks? Do people break off into small groups? What happens?
Well, it's always been my ethos with Ease Retreats that less is more. And it's so easy because I've been on retreats myself that they can jam pack them. So you're going from workshop to workshop, not really getting the time to pause or rest. And so I work very closely with the writer or creative expert way before the retreat happens to really fine tune what is the message that we're trying to get across. Obviously, the writer has their own specialist subject. So it's normally between 12 and 15 guests. Some writers now are starting to ask whether or not we could maybe host around the 20 number, but I think the 15 is a perfect number to get that intimacy, to make sure that the writer or the expert does get one-to-one time around the table. And that's the thing, we're not in no flash venue because I'm mindful that I've got to keep costs down so I can be able to offer a rate that's not going to break the bank. I also offer payment plans because I think those that, you know, are less fortunate than ourselves should have the opportunity to come on events like this. I'm trying to work closely with Literature Wales to see if I can get bursaries for things like that. But it is soulful. You know, I have been very specific about the writers I want to work with. You know, they they're very passionate about their subject matter. You know, there is such a massive element of heart and soul. And some of them are fresh and new to teaching. But I think because they're so into their own memoir writing and so they're on a path of discovery themselves, so they're learning. You know, it's like Emma Gannon, she's constantly going on courses and retreats herself to find out how she can tweak things and, you know, help the crew that come together. So we effectively sit around what is a kitchen table. You know, we have cups of tea and cake, there's flowers, there's candles, a real sense of hygge. You know, if you've heard of the Scandinavian feeling of, you know, being just, you know, that, do you remember that Lemsip advert where they, you know, someone's got a cold, they take a bit of the Lemsip out the mug and then the chair just folds around them and gives them this huge hug. So when we do get into sitting to start, there's the first masterclass of the morning, and that is not, right, listen to me and write this down. It's very interactive. You know, there's a lot of poetry, a lot of sharing of personal stories. You know, there's sometimes tears, sometimes women are triggered, just because sometimes it's the first time in 10 years, one, they've left their family. Two, they've actually been able to have the courage to actually say how it is. We have a lovely grazing lunch, and we get out into fresh air as if we can, you know, so they're usually in springtime and autumn. Blossom comes out. I don't know, like one we did in Clover's in her house, actually. She's got a lovely, it reminds me of the Little House on the Prairie. It's got this gorgeous balcony that sweeps all around the house. There's horses, there's animals. We just sat on blankets on the grass and chatted, and you know, there was just, you could just hear birdsong and women giggles, and it was, to try and describe that scene, it's just such a profound experience for them all. And so we have a masterclass then in the afternoon, time for a Q&A, and we could go on and on, because that's when everybody's like, oh my gosh, tell us, warts and all, what really goes on behind the scenes. And then a lot of the guests, we're on a WhatsApp group and they interact, and I will put my hand up and say that I was the one that said, Clover, you need to be on Substack. But her life was so busy. There's so much going on. And she was like, why is this Substack? And I'm like, you've just got to do it, And she's been on now just under a month. And she will find her tribe on there, because I suppose everybody's migrating over from Instagram. But yeah, every retreat is very different. If you go on an Emma Gannon one, it'll be very different to what Clover Stroud or Kathy Rensenbrink offers, but so magical in equal measures.
No, it sounds absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I'm really glad Clover's come to Substack. We've worked together a little bit. Really just because when you're not on Substack, and I think we need to remember this as writers to help our readers, because when you're not on there, it's a very difficult thing to explain. There are a range of different ways to explain what it is and what it can be. And also, I think for writers, what I've heard, not from Clover, but from other writers, is that it's really hard on them in terms of their comparisonitis and their imposter syndrome, which we all obviously work through, and we all take up space with how we feel around that, because there are so many incredible writers on there. So it's a really interesting space for me, because I'm not a published author. So as a creative producer and somebody that loves to hold space for others, it's like a perfect fit for me. I love it, but I'm not comparing myself to anybody on there, because even the other people in the Substack education space bring their own expertise. So yeah, for me, it feels very, very different. The thing that bothers me on Substack is when people start calling out, if anyone is making some money from educating. But I have had such amazing conversations and supported members to do such wonderful things. If I've seen it in notes, I just then mute that person, because I'm like, you don't understand. Like, people have such a lovely time and are so confused by Substack, and I can help that experience. So yeah, I think there's always going to be bits, isn't there, shards of negativity online, or shards of things that are difficult to deal with. And this is where being with people in the flesh and exchanging biology and seeing the real person, it becomes more real. And I think that makes the online world for us more real too. After Storyfest, a lot of us had that experience. We were meeting for the first time, and then now we're like, oh, hi, on the Zoom. We've seen each other. It feels real. And I love that you guys are still in touch and stuff on WhatsApp, because you've got that kind of constant cheerleading then, it's not a lonely place.
It's unbelievable, because the one we did with Emma, Jenny Godfrey was on there, and there was two other ladies that were about to publish a book. And so we've decided to have a meetup every month, because they want to cheerlead each other on. So some are on Substack. Jenny's like, she even said, no way to Substack. And I was like, it was almost like we were frozen going, sorry, what? You would be brilliant on Substack. You're so witty, and you've got so much comedy value. But she's like, I don't get it. But I said, just, there's no rush. But they're all really supportive of one another on where their writing is going, whether it's in Substack or it's going to be in a memoir or a novel. And then, I mean, that is priceless.
It really is. And I think there's something really special in us taking responsibility to seek that out. You don't need to pay to go on a retreat to do that. You just need to say, hey, like, I'm here. Is anyone else here? Do people want to collab? Do people want to start a WhatsApp group? Like, that's all I did, like I had an intention a few years ago, because I was feeling more and more detached from my colleagues in the arts and cultural sector, because lots of reasons really, but the main one is that the funding has been cut so much. So the sector relies on funded work, a lot of the time funded projects, and there isn't enough. And so living rurally, it's really difficult to have those same networking opportunities. You're not going to first nights or connecting over lunch anymore. Like, all of that's gone, and we made that conscious choice to be here. But I felt like I just would love some colleagues that are creative colleagues, but in a different way. And I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I knew that there was something that my soul was asking me to do. Like, how would I find those people? Where are they going to be online? And especially circling back to that kind of find your tribe on Instagram thing, which I never ever did. Like, there was some nice people, over the years, but I definitely didn't have that sense of like, this feels really, really supportive. And I feel like I can propel who I am in the world and my career because of these people. And I do feel that on Substack. I do feel it's a generous platform. It's built on generosity. If I've had anything to do with any other like customer service support or anything on any of the other things that I kind of buy in and pay for, nobody is as supportive and kind as Substack people when they reply. So it's built from the CEOs down through the staff, and then obviously it kind of ripples up through the way everybody has kind of been able to interact and stuff on notes. And I'm sure I'm not in a silo around that stuff. Do you find that as well, Tanya?
Oh, there is so much warmth, and you can only have a tiny little tribe of 10 different people. But there is, where did we see it? Was it on, I think you sent them notes that someone had gone missing. We hadn't heard from someone hadn't written. And it was like, that's almost so neighborly. That is community when, there's someone that you may have never met in real life, but you've built this trust and rapport with someone and notice when she's not there. I mean, that is going beyond the call of duty.
I think
That is
it is
beautiful.
it is community, isn't it? I
Mm.
think I feel that, I feel that with the memberships that I have both on Creatively Conscious and in Sparkle. Like, I'm genuinely so pleased to see people on Zoom. I love having the chats and the comments and stuff. I feel very privileged to do this work. It's beautiful, I feel very connected to people and their lives in a way that maybe I was just like the wrong generation for Instagram, like it's not that I dislike it, but I feel like it's trying to kind of push connection and community into a game. Like, I don't want to play a game. I want that to feel real. I want it to feel like it does in real life, but on the internet. And so Substack allows that for us, I think.
I always create images in my mind when I'm trying to explain something because I do suffer with malapropisms and I get because it's the excitement and it's like, oh God, the weather's torrentious and I'm like, okay, it sounds okay to me. Is it a word? But I always think the difference between Instagram and Substack is almost like we're all in cars on the motorway with Instagrams. Traffic is always flowing. And you may get to, if there's a queue, you may get to see, oh, there's a familiar face, or you'll go through a town and you'll see someone familiar. But with Substack, it's almost like you've gone to a drive-through movie and everybody's there to watch and participate in the same event, and you can see each other and there's a big warm glow and you maybe get out and have a chat and have a drink. So yeah, I think it's a different way of traffic coming and going or staying and wanting to have a refreshment with, that's
That
how.
is so beautiful. I love that so much. I feel like I want to ask somebody to commission that illustration because it just is. That is
Yeah.
exactly what it's like. It's so, so beautiful. So I would love to just ask, I know we've spoken about the retreats a little bit, and I'd just like to ask how people can either get on a wait list or find out more about your work with the Rage on a Page and the retreats, maybe start thinking about budgeting if they need to budget, if they want to come, like where they are geographically. I know Americans laugh at us, but the UK, it's just tricky sometimes. It's like, oh, it's 3 hours away. No, I can't go. And like Americans are like, oh, I'll drive 8 hours to see a friend. But
Yeah.
yeah, people need to plan, don't they, and work out what might be possible for them. So do they tend to be, you've said one was at Clover's house, one was in Wales. Like, are they going to be like different
They
places? What
are.
are your
It's
plans?
either in Wales or Oxfordshire. There seems to be something going on in the Oxfordshire countryside, and it's not too far from London, Swindon, Reading. The M4. So, but I do try and get as many people to Wales, to Cardiff or Pembrokeshire because it is so beautiful. I've run them in Snowdonia before, and when it's a weekend, it's the journey is part of the retreat. Because a lot of people are very city based, and to leave to get on public transport or to car share with someone, I had someone travel all the way from Brighton to the Clover weekend in Snowdonia, and it was like, oh, it's like a white knuckle ride but tan. It was stunning, and it was like she felt all the emotions, and it was like a retreat, just the journey over, because I gave them a playlist, and they could really get ready for what was awaiting them when they got there. So yeah, I get asked a lot of the time, will I go abroad, looking at Europe, like France and Spain? And I never say never. I think it all comes down to the collaboration and whether we can find the right venue, and it's not too complicated, like you say, for logistics in travel, because I have got people in America wanting to come, but they've got to plan it for 2025 just to give themselves. And also that is, it's quite a bit of pressure on us as event managers to go, I'm planning that far in advance, and this person is paying all this money, because it's not just the retreat, it's all the travel. So I've had mums coming and going, get the coffee on, my God. And I'm like, all right, you're the lady from Dublin. She goes, yes. And my teenage daughter decided to have a sleepover. So I had to leave at 4 a.m. They didn't get to sleep till 2 a.m. I've had like 2 hours sleep, but and she was just like, I've driven miles on the ferry to get here. And she didn't want to leave, so it's fascinating,
There's a real arrival, isn't
Yeah.
there, by the sounds of it, a real moment. It's so incredible to hear. Well, so if anyone's listening, head over to Tanya's Substack, and then there'll be, I don't know if you got that organized over there, or is it just you'll just put a post out when you're next ready to kind of announce a retreat, or is
Well,
it better to head to your
I've got a
website?
monthly newsletter that goes out of my Ease Retreats,
Okay,
and
perfect.
so if people sign up on the website. But yeah, I'm usually announcing things on Substack or on my social media. So yeah, I'll find you
Mm.
if you don't find me.
That sounds so gorgeous. And also remember that, this journey that we can opt into. So this permission slip is a really important one, because we don't know where it's going to take us. Like, we might end up being a published author. That might not be what it's about at all. Like, there are so many different ways with it, isn't it? It's basically about connection and self-expression, and it sounds beautiful.
And collaboration. The amount
Mm-hmm.
of women that have found the courage because they can maybe make their side hustle now their business, because they've found a sisterhood on Substack. I mean, that would be a
Yeah.
really interesting article to write, to do some feedback and research to
Mm.
see how many collaborations, how many dots have been joined over the
Yes.
past 2 years.
Yeah, I
It would
love
be
that. That would be
fascinating.
really interesting. There's a couple of really interesting bits of research happening at the moment. One from the writer that writes A Mail. I can't remember their name, but that one is around how much money, like less fees, people are making on Substack. And then there's now Substacks have brought in surveys. People are kind of tentatively asking more questions and trying to kind of investigate. And it's so funny, because the reason I decided to do this work in this Substack education space was because I wrote a post called "Is Substack a Side Hustle?" and Substack pushed it out, and it got a lot of views, and I'd never had anything like that online before. And it was a well-researched piece, but it was based on guesswork, because no one was being transparent about how much they were earning. You could only try and kind of work it out. But obviously, if people do deals and stuff like that and coupons are in play, then you've really got no idea. So it was like a guesstimate piece, but it was like also, this is a real opportunity. Like, when you actually start doing some of the maths, this is a real opportunity, and
Mhm.
people were really, really into that concept and really into that. I think side hustle has been just a popular term that's been coined, hasn't it, the last few years, and people kind of emerged out with the pandemic wanting to become entrepreneurs and stuff. So yes, so it went somewhere, and I think we as writers on Substack and as a community on Substack want to be transparent and want to say, like, this is what it's really like, this is what it takes, this is what you can do, but you don't have to. It's the cadence is completely up to you. So there's lots of opportunities, isn't there, to do it
Yeah.
the way that you want to do it. And you can charge whatever you want to charge for your newsletter, or whatever lives behind the paywall, whichever way you do it.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating because there's so many departments, and I think, long may your workshops live, because I think I just will speak on behalf of those people on Substack that have found you and are booking with you. It's amazing what you're doing. The work that you're putting out there is brilliant, and I highly recommend anyone that's looking to learn a few top tips and techniques to check Claire out, because you won't be.
Oh, thank you, Tanya. That's so sweet of you. Well, we'll wrap up there, but thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much for Tanya and giving her time. It's been so brilliant. And I hope that it's inspired you to think about the metamorphosis of your Substack. So if you are listening and you're a beginner and you've kind of picked a title and you've picked a publication name and you're just figuring it all out, know that you can change it. You know, you can pivot and you can change it and you can do what you feel called to do in the given moments. There are lots of ways to organize your Substack so it's you at the heart, and then the things that you do around that. So do more of that in the workshops, but yeah, it is your publication to make your own. And I'm so happy that we've had Tanya's insight on all of that, because it's been brilliant. Thanks again, Tanya.
Thank you, pleasure.